All right. We are live and recording. Thanks everyone for joining on time. If someone can just confirm in the chat to me if you can hear me okay and if you can see my slides, that would be amazing. Thank you. Thank you, Stuart. Great. All right, let's get started. Thanks all for being here today. We have a very special webinar today for you. It's a little different than the webinars that CRM Science has done in the past, but we are very excited because we are joined by two of our amazing clients, Beatomic and Vertex. And we'll have them introduced to you in a little bit. But before we get started, a little background on CRM Science for those of you who are not familiar with us. We are a Salesforce Gold consulting partner, as well as a official PDO expert. And there are only 8 of us in the world, last time I checked. So we are very fortunate to be part of that group. And what that means on a daily basis is that we work with ISV partners to help build their app and launch it on the AppExchange. We guide them through the entire process. We develop the technology, and then we support them post-launch as well. And then in addition to that, being a full-service consulting partner, we can also take care of implementation. So we do that across all of Salesforce's clouds, as well as for these third-party Salesforce apps. So we are recording this session today. So after this webinar, you will be receiving the replay via email. So be on the lookout for that. And then if you have a question, I recommend that you use the Q&A or the chat functionality in Zoom. And we will have plenty of time towards the end of this webinar to get your questions answered that you have for our panelists. So with that, I have the pleasure of introducing you to this amazing group of people that we have here today. Joe, do you want to start it off here with an introduction of yourself? And I think you're muted, Joe.
Thank you, Diana.
Yeah, thank you.
My name is Joe Griffith. I'm the CSO for CRM Science, and I'm incredibly excited to have 3 of my favorite people on the conversation today. A little bit of housekeeping before we get started. The game plan is to be here for just less than an hour. If as an attendee, you'd like to turn on your video, that would be awesome. It's not a requirement. It's just a polite ask so that we can feel a little bit more connected to you and be a little bit different than most webinars. I also want to say thanks to Diana and the teams at Vertex and Beatomic for all the effort they put in prior to this webinar to make it successful for us. And I also want to thank specifically Erin from Vertex and Seth from Zinc for investing their time with us here today to share their experiences. A couple thoughts around the outcomes before I introduce the panelists today. We have 2 organizations that have embarked on a journey to list on the Salesforce AppExchange. We have 2 organizations that are selling their products and services on the Salesforce AppExchange. We also have 2 organizations that are adding value and driving sales for the Salesforce platform. And what's really cool is both of them have become go-to-market partners with Salesforce here in 2020 and 2021. The first person I'd like to introduce is Matt Shear. Matt's the practice lead here at CRM Science. Matt, could you introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Joe. I've been here at CRM Science for a little over 4 years now, but I've been working in the AppExchange ecosphere, both as an ISV developer and a team lead for the PDO work here at CRM Science for about 11 years. I've been involved with at least, I'd say, 20 to 25 different managed packages and double that non-managed. So I've been all over the place as far as building and coordinating these kind of efforts.
Thanks, Matt. If you could go to the next slide, Diana, that would be great. I'd like Erin to introduce herself. One of my favorite gifts, great gifts that we got from Erin during the preparation process is Erin. From this point forward, we're going to call this the AppExchange Chronicles. I thought that was a great offer that you gave Seth and Matt, Diana, and me. Without further ado, Erin, if you could introduce yourself, that would be great.
Absolutely. Thank you, Joe. And thank you, Diana and CRM Science for having me. I'm really excited to be here today. A little bit about myself. I work at Vertex Inc., and we are a sales and use tax automation company. I've been in the ecosystem for about 4 years. That's when we launched our first app, and now we currently have 5. My day-to-day, I am working with Salesforce reps, the Salesforce marketing teams and go-to-market teams to really make sure that we are aligned with our product messaging. We are training their sales reps and really getting our brand out to Salesforce end users. I'm excited to be here, and thank you again, Joe.
Oh, thanks for taking the time. Diana, the next slide so I can introduce Seth. Seth, really easy for an opener here, right? I really genuinely appreciate you. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Neon and Zinc and Be Atomic.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And thank you, CRM Science, for hosting me and Erin. It's already been fun just preparing, so I'm excited to be on the call today. So I represent a different side than Vertex. So I'm an independent insurance agency in Cleveland, Ohio. I started from scratch in 2008, and my name of my agency is Zinc. And I was so flippin' frustrated with 40-year-old technology and batch processing. And Salesforce really became a clear solution to me in that. And so we did it inside of our agency, and it became really clear that there was a product missing on the AppExchange. And so born from real users on a real retail insurance agency in Cleveland, Ohio, came Be Atomic, which was a company that would put an app that would solve a lot of the real day pain points for insurance agencies and insurance carriers around data and connectivity. And our first product is called Neon, and the app just listed with CRM Science in the last 30 days, and could not be more excited to share part of our chronicles and the journey along the way as well with everyone on the call.
Thanks, Seth. Diana, do you want to talk to us about a couple of polls?
Yes, we have a couple of questions for the audience. Just super curious to see who we have on the call today. So if you don't mind taking the poll, I'm going to launch the poll right now. So you should see it on your screen. All right, and we'll give people a minute or so to answer this.
I love how you get the little notice that says host and panelists cannot vote.
All right, we're at 88% through. Anyone else want to cast their vote? No? Okay. So I'm sharing the results now. We have 50% of people who responded yes. They do currently have a product on the Salesforce AppExchange, and then 25% said no, and 25% said not sure.
So this will be helpful for everybody.
Yeah. And then we have another poll, if you guys don't mind. The second question is, we're curious to find out what your relationship is to Salesforce. All right, looks like most people responded. And this is interesting. The majority here is a consulting partner. And then we have a few people who fall into the other buckets.
Yep, that's great. Thanks for taking the poll. So I think at this time, Diana, you're going to turn off the slides.
I am, yeah.
And what we did was we came up with 5 questions that we thought would really resonate with the audience. And I'm going to first start with Erin. And Erin, talk about what inspired you and Vertex to become a go-to-market partner with Salesforce on the AppExchange.
Absolutely. So I gave a little bit of background about what Vertex does previously. So we do sales and use tax calculations, and we help 60% of the Fortune 500. So we're helping Amazon, Walmart, Best Buy, all the way down to SMB companies. Sales tax, is really important in companies' compliance processes. So we want to make sure that we can automate that and take that off of that company's plate. We wanted to get involved with Salesforce because we saw it as a huge opportunity. We want to reach any company that is transacting so that we can calculate the tax on that transaction. Salesforce, obviously is a huge player in that space. And when I actually first started, we didn't have any of our apps live. So now we have 5. So we've really been through that journey. And when we first started, it was hard to get things going a little bit as you're going through that process and figuring out. And now that we're so involved in the ecosystem, we have a fabulous partner account manager. It's almost like it's becoming easier as you get to know everyone, in the space. And it also inspires you to want to, innovate your product line to fit Salesforce roadmap. So that was really what got us going here at Vertex to want to work more closely with Salesforce.
Yeah, that's awesome. And what I see with the Vertex, right, is it makes for a really easy walk to the CFO's office, right? That I know for me, that's part of my journey with you. Is it's really inspiring to say, hey, this is a really exciting conversation you can have with the CFO. Seth, what turned you on?
Well, I would echo everything that Erin said. All of that is 100% true. For our particular use case, though, there were 2 things that became clear as we thought about this product. One, in a 200-year-old industry that focuses on data and movement and personal information around insureds and policyholders, security was going to be an issue. And so when we did our early kind of meetings with insurance carriers and said, hey, we want to start moving data back and forth, regulatory came up every time, security, HIPAA, compliance, and all that thing. So it became very important to partner with somebody who had already nailed to the wall security and issue and infrastructure. And when you asked them who they were all using or contemplating using, Salesforce came up on that. The second issue was scalability. As a small company, as a startup, spending our resources on scaling the technology would have taken away from the solution. And so when you looked at the need, 6,000 insurance carriers in the United States, 38,000 independent insurance agencies with an average of 10 people in each one. For us to be able to lay that infrastructure and present the solution would have been impossible. And so when you think about the security of moving personal information in real time so that manufacturing and distribution or insurance carrier and insurance agent can have single line of sight on the customer, it became clear that for security and for scalability, that Salesforce was going to be the easiest road to go in terms of satisfying those critical requirements to get it off the ground.
Yeah, I agree. And we've been working closely with Salesforce and their insurance vertical, and we agree, right, that intimacy with the client, whatever time the agent can have to continue to build that intimacy, certainly then determines or creates a closer relationship. And at the end of the day, a more intimate relationship means more wallet share, right? Yeah, Matt, any color, what color would you like to add to that about what you've seen with our clients and what's inspired them to move to Salesforce?
I was going to say a story I basically a dozen years ago when I first got into Salesforce, rounding. I heard a story. Someone explained to me what it really was, and they said, Salesforce came across this great. They built this great platform that was great for being a management system for all of your sales and all your pipeline, everything else. And they realized we can sell this to people who are going to be, using it for sales and marketing. But we also built a great platform that can do anything. And they went one step further and they sold that, the Force.com platform, which gives the ability to support any industry, any vertical, whether it's just a sales team or any kind of concept, basically, you could think of. You could find a way to work it in the Salesforce. And ever since then, I've really been kind of inspired to see what the next app's going to be, what the next idea someone brings to me is, because doing 2 dozen apps in my career so far, I couldn't tell you 2 that were similar. they're all over the place. So it's really, it's interesting to me just to see what the next new idea is and how Salesforce can handle that too.
Yeah, and that enthusiasm, I work with you just about every day. That enthusiasm shines through on especially the initial calls that we have with folks, right? To hear their passion, enthusiasm, it kind of jazzes us up too. Um, Seth, the next question is the classic question on a webinar or a conversation hour here at the AppExchange Chronicles, which is about obstacles, right? So talk a little bit about obstacles and challenges, were they people, process, technology? Talk about what the obstacles look like for you.
Well, I think about, with Salesforce, it's such a massive organization, right? Global. Go to a world tour and your feet hurt within the first 10 minutes, right? And there's always like 6 chairs around a campfire that someone else has for 4 hours. So it's just this massive organization, and you're walking with it with these great ideas and how to do it. And for me, coming in at street level, not necessarily being part of a large organization that already had a massive existing relationship, coming off street level and trying to navigate that was really a challenge for us. I would say the second thing that was challenging was gaining credibility. When you think about a product solution and you're talking to your local AE and say, hey, that would be great. And it's like, I didn't realize that the journey from that person who helped you solve it at street level to get to an ISV partner, I had no idea what a massive undertaking that would be. And I think, so for me, the challenge was not just coming up with the idea, but figuring out the organization and how it worked. And it should be like, I tell my kids all the time, if Salesforce had like a documentary, like on the weekends, we would watch just like how it works and where it goes and who you talk to and what the roles are. And so that challenge. And then once you figure that out, how to elevate credibly your solution through so that you garner respect, you garner trust, and you make sure that the right people understand and ultimately benefit from the solution. So it takes a minute. And if you're one of the people out there thinking about being a part of the partner community, you just have to know going in, you have to go through that. And they do a good job of improving every year on how to understand that better. But for me, that was the challenge coming off the street from Cleveland, Ohio.
Especially from Cleveland, Ohio. Erin, I remember the first call into Vertex. Why are you not on the AppExchange? It was quite some time ago. But to talk to us a little bit about the journey that you and Vertex have been on as far as challenges.
Definitely. So as far as challenges, I really think that, no matter what company you are, the biggest, or if you're a startup, when you enter the Salesforce ecosystem, it's very humbling. If you walk in there and say, look at our customer list, look at, all these amazing people that we help streamline their tax processes, you still have to prove yourself, just like what Seth was saying. You really have to show your customer success, earn their trust, show them what moves the needle, and really bring value to their sales deals. It's definitely, tricky in the beginning because you're like, oh, well, we're so important to these other partners, how do we get there within Salesforce? And one thing that has helped us, I said this earlier, we have a fabulous partner account manager who has helped us to navigate what events to attend, as Seth mentioned, getting involved in world tours, maybe on the local level first, so that you can make some of those, face-to-face introductions that'll take you, through the ecosystem journey. Because if you really just, dive in, it can get overwhelming and you don't really know where to start. So it's really important that we kind of mapped, our product people have their contacts, our marketing people have their specific contacts, our partner team, works closely with our account manager and sales team. So I think since it's so large, it's best to kind of water it down a little bit and just, start from square one and then go up, or else you literally can drown in it.
Yeah, I remember when I first got started about 4 years ago. I think it was the messaging. At least I thought it was just build it and they will come, right? And Matt, I don't want to steal all your thunder, but I think when we engage initially with new partners, there are oftentimes it is that perception. I'm just going to build it and then things will happen. So I don't know what other color you want to add to that, or if I did actually just steal your thunder. But
Well, it was a nice segue.
yeah.
It definitely. I mean, I'm a technology person, so for me, one of the first hurdles I had to learn back when I first began this career path was definitely to realize how much of a personal corporation Salesforce is. You have to actually know people, talk to people, engage with people. Just writing code and saying I'm done doesn't get you anywhere. There's a lot more than that. There's a lot more relationship building involved in it, which I really enjoy, honestly. But it feels better to do that than just write an app, put on like on the Apple Store. You just put an app on the store and walk away and make money. But that's also the feel. Pardon me. Like you mentioned before, Joe, a lot of times people will come to us and they'll assume that all they have to do is build an app and put it on the AppExchange and then just sit back and watch the money come in. And while I'm sure at some point that has happened or would happen in miracle cases, the vast majority need to be ready to engage themselves. And that's an answer to the question of kind of what the challenges are. On listing the AppExchange, one of the biggest challenges is making customers realize that that you'll have an app on the AppExchange listing, and you'll have a marketplace to sell through, but that's not going to drive your entire business. You need to drive people to it. You need to engage people. You have to make your own sales. Granted, once you start that flow, eventually it starts kind of perpetuating itself, but it won't start itself off, and that's a shift from what you often expect when people hear things like App Store. They go, oh, just put it there and it makes money, and it's more than that. It's just more engagement.
Yeah, 100% agree. All right, so we've been inspired, and we're talking about the obstacles that we're going through, right? But now we're listed, and I feel very fortunate that I was there. Maybe that same day when both your companies were listed. But take us to a place where you're listed, Erin. I know Vertex also went public this year. So, I'm sure the AppExchange listing was number one, going public was number two, if I understand correctly. But
Of
talk to
course.
us about, once you got listed and once you started
Mhm.
selling, right? Talk about the impact of the app being listed and selling to your organization.
So it's a little bit tricky for us because we are really set up as an organization to get our customers set up on their own. So if they purchase a Salesforce license from us, we typically get that implemented and they get set up. So when we got our AppExchange listings, it was actually a big shift, an exciting shift for us that our customers could really have a self-service model. So if someone needed, a CRM integration, they could go right to AppExchange, download that, plug it into their instance of Salesforce with their Vertex tax ID, and they were set to go. And that's something new for Vertex, so it's very exciting. But as Matt mentioned, we had to start to learn that not everyone knows that Vertex is out there. We had to let our customers and our prospects know that we are listed on the AppExchange. So we spent a lot of time working with the Salesforce AMP marketing team, where they took time to go through, you have a new listing, this is what we suggest. You need to make sure your listing looks good. You don't want to invest a lot of money and marketing dollars if your app listing, doesn't have screenshots and a video and your pricing isn't on point. You just want to make sure you really have that buttoned up. Once we got that going, that's when we started to invest in having, priority placement on the AppExchange so that we would be, seen on the homepage. We started to do demo jams to drive new people to the AppExchange listing. And now when we do customer marketing, we actually link our AppExchange listing right on there to try to get our customers into more of a self-service model where they feel empowered and they feel like, Vertex is keeping up with the times and really involved with Salesforce.
Yeah, so nice to hear that you had an internal challenge, right, to become operationally excellent and then turn that out to come up with a different way, a different way to sell to your customers.
Yep.
Is that fair? Awesome. Seth, your thoughts?
Yeah, so we're not quite public yet, like Vertex. We're just like a little bit behind by like $1 billion. But what I would say is those are our aspirations. And so I'm pleased to be on a call with Vertex and to be friends with Erin, because that's where we want to go. And for us, the Salesforce app being on the AppExchange gave us credibility. So industry interest, we had thousands of people following us. We had the industry cheering for us. I mean, we did our hard launch and 10,000 people showed up to watch it. And there's a lot of people in my space who come in and say they're gonna do something. And then they just kind of like, well, where'd they go? And it's just like, it's almost like vaporware. It's like, and nothing happens. Or worse, people come in and they mess it up. And so kind of being a grassroots revolution, come in and say, we're going to do this, follow me. We're going to streak the quad, and then turn around and not deliver is just not going to happen. And so for us, all our resources went into saying, no, we're serious about this. We chose the most secure way to do it. We chose the most scalable way to do it, and we're going to do it. And so we took a tremendous amount of pride in when that app went live. That was a year's worth of work and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, not just by us, but with CRM Science to get that up there. And so for us, it gave us credibility. It gave us the momentum we needed. And there was a little bit of like, yeah, we did what we said we would do, you know? And so for me, the AppExchange is extremely valuable real estate. It's kind of like Rodeo Drive to me. And if you're going to be legit, then you better be on Rodeo, right? And so for us, we took that approach as like, hey, if we're on that street, then we're in the conversation. And it's had that effect. People are like, oh, you have the app on the AppExchange. And that moves us from just kind of Salesforce hobbyists. And there's a lot of hobbyists in my industry that are like, oh no, we do Salesforce or we know Salesforce, to say, well, let me check out your app. And that it's a big thing. And I'll tell you, the other thing is, within 3 weeks to be the #1 rated and the highest rated insurance app, it let our fans show their support. And so now as people come on the app, it's like all of a sudden they're like, yeah, from Main Street to the AppExchange, you guys did it, and we want to support you. So it's a location where people can kind of pump their fist and say, right on. And that means a lot to people trying to change an industry.
Yeah, that's awesome. And Matt, before you add some color, I was
More
just thinking
color than streak the quad. How is that possible?
True. But in addition to the impact on your organizations, the one thought that comes to mind to me is, we talked about go-to-market partners, right? And we probably didn't really go into that too much, but at least earlier we didn't. But think about the impact of Salesforce, what it means to be go-to-market partner, right? This does mean that the folks in charge of the vertical messaging have aligned themselves and taken your messaging and integrated with their messaging. That's really powerful, right? That's a really strong commitment on Salesforce's behalf to run with you guys. And what that also means is that the people on the ground, right, the AEs, the customer success managers, the system engineers, they're also getting educated on how your product not only adds value, but bottom line drives licensing, right, to Salesforce licensing, and of course customer success. So I think that's an awesome commentary on your organizations. Matt, your comments on how Salesforce or our clients are impacted.
Yeah. First, I want to say thanks, Joe. Having a buffer between me and Seth makes me feel a lot stronger in my presentation. You're hard to follow, man. You're hard to follow, Seth. You really are.
We'd need 2 hours. Yeah.
But anyway, in general terms, with this kind of going to the AppExchange, what happened, how it impacts your company, I feel that it really is kind of a reflection of what your importance and your focus on the app is. If you're a company who wants to add an app that does a download and you figure 5 guys are going to use it, you don't really care, it won't affect you. But if you really have a drive behind it, if you see the importance of the app, if you put your like Vertex is doing, your multiple connections and your multiple branches of as many products as you can to all reach Vertex, or Seth, where your industry is your focus, your product is based on building right into this industry, then you're going to have a better response for it. And I couldn't have said better either of the ones you guys. I'm not going to try and repeat you guys because you're great. But in general terms, that's what it is the more effort and the more drive you put into it, when it hits that finish line, you keep going and it will impact you that much more as well.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Erin, it reminds me of, Vertex is a place that is really proud to win best places to work almost all the time. And when I think about our relationship and customers ask, are you technically qualified to do the work, right? That's usually not really the biggest hurdle. What we're looking for is cultural fit. And this was quite some time ago, but I do remember that the conversation before we agreed to work together was a bunch of folks on your team that required us to come to the office, sat us down. We thought it was going to be another hour discussion about architecture. And really what they did, just looked into the whites of our eyes and said, we're in this for the long haul. We just to make sure you understand that. And to me, it gives me goosebumps now just thinking about it, right? It was not really about our technical aptitude, but about our cultural fit and commitment to the company. It's really good stuff. Yeah, really good stuff. Seth, question 4 is about how you were helped in navigating the Salesforce ecosystem. So I think we all appreciate that you can't do this alone, to get to become a go-to-market partner, but talk about your support system in navigating through Salesforce ecosystem.
Well, I mean, it's, your internal culture, all your hires have to see the value of it. So your culture automatically changes to, okay, you see that blue cloud? That's pretty important to us, right? So let's just make sure everybody knows that that's a thing, right? And building that community and that thought process and that belief system inside your internal culture is huge. Second, you better choose the right partner. And I mean, not that this is a paid advertisement, but we interviewed a number of PDOs, and I'll never forget. I was in my 1954 pickup truck talking to Leah, saying, "Hey, I want to change an industry," and every other PDO is either missing what I'm saying or understanding the passion. And she's like, "I love the passion. Let's talk about it." And I have to say, one, because of the people, and I flew out to King of Prussia, which I don't even know that was a place, but I flew out there. I wanted to look in the whites of your eyes too, and just make sure that you got that this was how I was going to spend my career and how I was going to spend every last dollar I have to my name. And I wanted to make sure that real people were behind it. Add to it, you guys have a proven success record for delivering the top apps to it. Add to it that you guys understand the human part of this, because, oh, by the way, technology is like this much of it. It's really about relationships and helping people get what they want. And you guys got that. And so I think about that. And then I think about that one person in Salesforce, and Erin, you probably have that one person too, that just, they see you somewhere in your Salesforce journey and they believe in you, they follow up, they let you know what you're missing, where you're going on. It's almost like having a Sherpa. Like, I feel like I had an oxygen assist ascent of Salesforce from a dude Flynn.
Yeah.
And that guy just saw me and said, "You know what, little kid, I'm going to put you under my wing and I'm just going to take you on this journey." And even when he was reassigned, he still would just, "Hey, I'm in a different region. I'm doing a different, but I hear you don't miss this. Make sure you talk to that person." So finding that person, finding your Sherpa is a really big part of the journey too.
Yeah, I remember Leah's call saying, "Joe, you're not going to believe it. You got to talk to this guy." And I do remember your partner guy saying, I'm not giving these guys up. I think he was getting promoted and all that good stuff, but I'm not giving up on these guys. And Erin, talk to us a little bit about how partners have helped you in the Salesforce ecosystem.
Yeah. So 100% going to echo Seth on this about making sure that you work with the PDO. CRM Science, 8 of the experts in the entire world. We would not be live on the AppExchange without them. They are incredible. They build and maintain our integrations. And I think also if you're looking at it from an ISV partner and maybe evaluating a BDO and trying to decide if that's the best option, I can give you an example of where it saved us. We had some internal changes at Vertex where the team that was working on our Salesforce integrations were shifted to another project. So we didn't really have anyone working on them, where since we were working with CRM Science, they were able to continue our integration work, making sure our enhancements and bug fixes were still getting done since we didn't have that being done internally. So I'm a huge advocate for having a PDO. Some other recommendations, it's really important to make friends with the ecosystem and community. So even though, Seth's company and Vertex do completely different things, we can still check in and talk about go-to-market activities. Hey, did you hear about this? Just kind of bounce ideas off of each other. And when Seth was talking about a Sherpa, our partner account manager actually recommended a partner to us that did something completely different than Vertex. They'd had much success in the ecosystem working with consulting partners and other ISVs. And he said, hey, I think you would really benefit from meeting with them and hearing what they did. They're a couple years ahead of us. And, they're an advocate for us. They're a cheerleader. She sat down with me and said, this is who you need to talk to. These are the industries that are hot. This is what the roadmap looks like. This is what made us successful. So I'm a big advocate and in passing that down when I can. I'm not at that expert level yet, but I hope someday I can, help another partner get through that time. I also recommend Trailhead. If you're getting into the ecosystem and it's overwhelming, Trailhead really, really helps me and anyone that we bring into, our internal Vertex Salesforce team. We always try to advise them to take the time to do those Trailhead activities. And you can actually communicate with other people while you do those. So that's a good way to make friends in the ecosystem too.
Yeah, for sure. And, can't name all the names, but some folks that come to mind, you know who you are, right? The Collins of the world and the Tobys of the world and the folks in the industry, we want to thank them. I also appreciate the shout out to CRM Science. That's really cool. Matt, how about your thoughts on, where would we be if, obviously we didn't have our clients, but, think about how Salesforce has helped us, especially in the last couple of years.
Well, there's a lot of engagement. We, because of working with clients like Vertex and Neon, actually, we're getting a lot more engagement with Salesforce as well. So it is working both ways. It's nice because we're getting more exposure to, like I mentioned before, the go-to-market products and the ground level stuff. And Salesforce is a fantastic organization as far as being reachable, which is surprisingly shocking. If I have a question about a product, I can usually get my hands on, whether it's via Twitter, the community, the partner community, or occasionally even direct email. I can reach the product manager in charge of that and have them forward me to the right person. If the answer isn't just search the web, which occasionally it is. Oops. But but for the most part, it's very engaging, and the company itself, Salesforce, is really great to work with in the sense that I've never encountered someone who just flat out says, I won't help you, or go away, or leave me alone. They always want to make sure you're empowered. So it's just a matter of knowing where to go next. And I can't echo enough what Erin said also about Trailhead. It is a fantastic resource. Years ago, Salesforce had some serious issues with documentation. It's true. I'm sorry. It was awful. And if you wanted to learn Salesforce, you had to sit down and start reading and then talking to people, and that's all you could do. They came up with Trailhead a few years ago, and it's been a fantastic experience as far as using that. There are still flaws. Obviously, there are always going to be. But for the most part, you can learn all kinds of various aspects from Salesforce, from marketing to administration to development, architecture, even business processes, which aren't really in Salesforce. You can kind of get best practices from Trailhead. So it's really a fantastic resource to use as far as learning more and getting deeper in. And not to be self-aggrandizing, but having a partner or someone who was experienced in Salesforce, whether it's a PDO or another firm who is an ISV, definitely helps a lot, because it's much easier to ask a question to a person than it is to just go find the answer yourself.
Yeah, I think that's awesome, Matt. And for me, where I want to say thanks, not only I think you said the folks at Salesforce, right? Whether that's a vertical person or a technical person, they've always been accessible.
Mm-hmm.
They've always been willing to coach us and talk to us about how that ecosystem works. But even for our customers, right? The obvious is, hey, they invested in us, right? So we had an opportunity to do some work and all that. But what I really have enjoyed is I do pride myself in a person who assimilates quickly to things. But I got to tell you, Erin and her team at Vertex, they have taught me a lot about how to talk to customers who want to mitigate risk in a sales use tax audit, right? So I sound really intelligent when I'm on. They're like, yes, we are. I don't know who, but somebody's really worried about that, right? And Seth, I mean, where would I be if you didn't take this 100-mile-an-hour guy, right? Who, I run into everything 100 miles an hour and go, Joe, dial it down to 25, right? What you want to accomplish in one meeting, it might take 4. So, I really appreciate your advice on how to speak to the insurance industry. And that's been incredibly helpful for me. Well, as you wrap up then, the last question's just about a general advice question, right? So Matt, I'm going to start with you on this one. What advice do you have for an organization that wants to launch a product on the AppExchange? What are those 1 or 2 things that come to mind for you?
For me, it's planning. More than anything else, as I mentioned before, you can't just build it and have a success. You have to actually have a market plan, have demographics selected, treat an ISV partnership and an AppExchange listing like any other product you'd make. You wouldn't make a new car and then just put one dealership in the corner of one city and then sit there and never market it. It wouldn't do anything. You have to do the same thing with this. You have to plan out who your target audience is, who's going to be paying for it, why they'd pay for it, what you can add to it. And again, engage with somebody who has experience, because there are a lot of mistakes to make. And it's best to have someone who already made them talk to you, as opposed to learning yourself the hard way.
Yeah.
Those are my biggest 2 suggestions, I'd say.
Yeah. Thanks, Matt. Erin, your thoughts? What advice do you have?
Definitely echoing that about making sure that you have a plan. One of the ways that we do this is, so for those of you that answered that you're currently working on launching an app on the AppExchange, when you have to launch that app, you do have to build a business plan within the AppExchange of who you're targeting, the industries, your pricing, all of that. And you really want to take that document seriously, because I can understand how, no one's really monitoring that, right? You just have to, enter a few things and you're done, on to the next thing. Take your time on that. Maybe review it with, your team at work to make sure everyone's aligned and on the same page, and hold yourself accountable to that business case and really get everyone's buy-in and blessing on it. It's going to go a long way, in executing that plan.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, and obviously that common thread of planning, right, runs through everybody's thoughts. Seth, what's your advice to potential partners?
Yeah, Matt and Erin are 100% right. I would say the thing that stands out to me is it's an emotional journey, going from thought to planning to business planning to creation to listing to distribution. And I think most people agree now that emotional intelligence is one of the most important attributes. Understanding how things feel, and the Salesforce ecosystem is so massive, the complexity of the product, all of that stuff, the journey you as an app builder or the person thinking of it will be going on, it's a lot of up and downs. And there's a lot of cinema verite going on in the journey of that. I mean, the camera's shaking, it's moving, and there's a lot of Jason Bourne moments, and it's like, it's all happening, and it's very easy to get discouraged. It's very easy to get downhearted. It's very easy to be over optimistic, to set unrealistic expectations. And there's not enough said about what the impact of that has on you. I mean, just trying to be a good father, a good husband, a good business owner, a good leader. All of that is wrapped up in this product, right? And so, just think about that journey and let this be like the blue pill. That's what's happening. But that's also the joy of it. And that's what you're signing up for. So going into it, knowing to enjoy the ride, like this is why you're setting out on this journey. You find great partners like CRM Science, and you listen to them and you avoid mistakes, get to know people. I mean, like Erin taught us how to spell COA. We were stuck. We're like, how do you spell that? She's like, no, And so that journey, it's all, and friendship comes from it, and success comes from it, but it's a ride. And so be ready for the ride. And when you get it, if you're lucky enough to catch the rocket, have fun, because it's a joy to help other people and to use technology to make processes and people more capable. I mean, it's the joy of joy.
I think the three of you, if I try and summarize what the three of you have just offered, is on one hand, right? It's being realistic, right? This is a business model and we're trying to generate revenue. We have to figure out how to get customers and how to do implementations, right? And if you've ever done that in your life, it's not that easy. Otherwise, we'd all be doing it, right? So on one side of the equation, it's just another business revenue stream, or just another business, right? So that's fact. But I think the other side, what we've all witnessed here, and which has amazed me in my 4 years in the ecosystem, is this really awesome ecosystem is built on collaboration, diversity, kindness. For a person who's older, I used to walk into more competitive environments, with a handshake with the right hand and the knife, in the left hand, right?
Mhm.
And I will tell you, in the Salesforce ecosystem, they typically say, hey, there's that wise one. I almost get that Yoda feeling, from Star Wars. And I think the three of you really summarized that really well, right? It's a business decision, it's a business objective, but you need to lean into it with passion, enthusiasm, and a little bit of toughness and compassion to get through all that, right? Makes sense? Diana, as we look to wrap up with the last 10, 13 minutes we have, it's probably a really good place to ask the audience for a question or two. Can you help us there?
Yeah, and a couple of questions have already come in during the conversation. I think this is a good one for either Seth or Erin, or the both of you. Does your business see Salesforce and your app as its own line of business, or do you think about it as a value add?
Ladies first.
Okay, thanks, Seth. We see it. We want to see it as our own line of business eventually. That's the goal we're working towards, right? Where we have a lot of people driving towards the AppExchange. A lot of our customers that are reaching out to us for licenses, they just come right to us and we can license that integration. So we've come a long way. We're also looking at, our Salesforce revenue to ultimately be its own line of business at Vertex. That's our end goal there that we work towards, every day. So the AppExchange, we've seen tremendous growth in the past year once we started doing more activities to drive towards the marketplace. But we're not quite there yet where we would just be able to stand on that from a revenue perspective.
And I would say in the most complementary way of value add. So our business, I'm in a $2 trillion marketplace built on one thing and one thing only, and that's data and moving it. And agents turn it into experience, and carriers turn it into a product and both generate money. But the movement of it is the primary function for us. And so Salesforce is the vehicle that does that. And that's an honorable thing. And so with the greatest form of respect, I would say it's really a value add for us to get and move data and make people world-class for their customers, for their coworkers, for their partners. It's really that movement piece that Salesforce solves for us. Will we make money on Salesforce? We sure will. But all of it is surrounding that core product, which is data. And data in the hands of an independent agent is advice, it's consultation, it's standing in somebody's front yard when their house burned down and putting your arm around them. That's data. And for a carrier, pricing a product, being competitive, meeting the customer's ever-changing life with coverages and policies that protect people, that's data. And so Salesforce unique ability to make that pathway between the carrier, the agent, and the customer in one straight line is no kidding, extremely important and a massive opportunity.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you both.
Thank you. Yeah.
So another question that we have here, Erin, you mentioned a couple of times throughout the conversation, live events. One person is wondering how to continue to have that exposure within the Salesforce AppExchange ecosystem with no in-person events this year.
Mm-hmm. So whoever asked that question, don't worry, we're all in this together. Everyone, even if they're not on the AppExchange, is going through this. So we, like every other company, had a lot of marketing budget allocated for Dreamforce. We had 3 world tours, 1 international world tour. We were like ready to go this year, right? And then with everything that happened, we had to adjust just like every other company. So we're doing a lot of demo jams, any sales enablement activities, trying to be a part of Dreamforce to you, really making sure that you have that open communication with the Salesforce events team to let them know, hey, we have money to spend. We want to be a part of these events, even if they're virtual. And then also, like exactly what we're doing now, get creative, do webinars, put together some new content. It's a great way to really do some fun ebooks about, what's going on in the world, how your app can help businesses who are going through a hard time in 2020. And then lastly, one thing that, the downside of not having live events was, our lead generation was down. But one thing that has been a positive is many of the strategic leaders at Salesforce that we have been wanting to meet with, we can now, pin them down because they're responsive. They have more time because they're not traveling all the time. So I definitely would say if you have, 5 to 10 people at Salesforce that you're looking to meet with and get your story across to, now is definitely the time.
And maybe, Diana, just maybe the world tours weren't the stake on the plate after all. And so if you think about it, we get trained into like, hey, this is events or how you do business. Well, now that that's gone, and now we're probably doing the things that we should have been core to our functions anyway, which is great content, great marketing, understanding the marketplace, outreach, distribution. And that's really, I think, what we're learning. I'll never say that world tours are the parsley on the plate, but I'll tell you what, now when world tours start up, it's the value add because our core disciplines around distribution have been forced into place. And so I think for the smart person thinking about this was an opportunity, and they're not going to unlearn this, because if you have an app on the AppExchange and you go back to walking around with 6,000 people with your hands out, you're probably going backwards at that point. And so I think this is a new muscle, and the smart kids in the class are starting to embrace it. And then when world tours come back, that's just cream.
Yeah, and I think when you talk about the smart kids, I would ask everybody in the audience and whoever watches this presentation down the road, I think the smartness is under your nose, right under your nose. Too often, we don't look at being original and authentic, right? A common thread here that's brought us all together is we're all those types of people or those types of organizations. And if you look at your marketing team, right, Seth, and they are so crazy and different, right? To me, what I love is not being afraid, and Erin's given examples of what they've done already. Don't be afraid to be original and authentic, right? This meeting today came from that. Right. We want to kind of shift it from a webinar. I wanted to call it a conversation hour, and we all agree, just authentic content, man. That's, let's just do that rather than some of the mainstream type things. So I think your advice is awesome. Not only to the, the PDO prospects or the AppExchange prospects, but just to any organization who's trying to come up with better ways to connect with their customers. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, great perspective. Thank you. So we have a few minutes left, so let's take one more question. How long does the AppExchange journey typically take? Interesting question.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I will tell you, Matt, why don't you talk about that? I would love to have the pizza oven graph be a part of the process where we can see where they go in and where they might be. We're not there yet.
Actually, they're getting there. They actually did this thing. First the question. I'll branch in a moment. In general, it really does vary. The actual AppExchange journey can take anywhere from a few months to a few years based on how fleshed out your plan is. In all honesty, if you come to the table with a full fleshed out plan, your business plan's ready, your app design is ready to go, you know what you want to do, then that's going to be relatively quickly. The actual security review itself, by Salesforce terms, I believe is saying at the moment between 8 to 12 weeks, and that's the time it takes. The rest you can do a few hours here and there, as long as you have the prep work ready. The prep work being things like designing the app. It's hard to scope an app because I can't tell you whether an app's going to take you a week to write or 6 months to write based on how complex it is. But assuming the app development time is not involved in this discussion, it takes about 12 up to 12 weeks for the review to come through, and then you're listed. It really is just as simple as kind of focusing on what's important there. Now, Joe's point of the Domino's tracker, I think I always call it, pizza tracker, they had what's called the security review redesign. I saw a webinar on it about 10 days ago or so, where basically what happened is they've redesigned the entire flow of how you submit your app. It's now a more easy to follow process as far as answering questions. And once you're submitted, you can then go back to that review and you can see, are you in the queue? Are you being reviewed? Are there questions pending for you? And it can kick back to you afterwards. Maybe something didn't pass for some reason. That's actually currently live. It only has 4 options, so it's not going to give you a whole lot of details. But at least now we've got a peek into that black box that was just you send it off in the mail and get it back someday.
Yep, and it's not the sexiest part of the process, but it's a required part. And you know, we just, as we've said throughout, we need to plan for that, right? Erin, Seth, any color there?
I'm going to say it again. Sorry, I sound repetitive. If we didn't have CRM Science helping us with our security review, I would not have any hair on my head. It's a tough process. And as Matt said, it's changing. It changes. So having the expertise of CRM Science to help us navigate security review is just tremendous.
Yeah, and I would say pizza night starts in traffic. It's not when you order it, and it's not when you're looking at the track. It's when you know that your wife is stuck on the 480 bridge and you're stuck on 271 and it ain't going to happen. Pizza night starts right there.
Yeah.
Then it's an hour to get home, and then it's rummaging through the fridge to validate that pizza night is definitely happening. And then it's where are we getting the pizza, and then it's ordering the pizza, and then it's who's going to pick it up, or are they going to drop off the cold pizza? Pizza starts in traffic at 5 o'clock that day. And so I would tell you your app is the same thing. Depending on where you are in traffic and how well prepared your refrigerator is going to totally determine the outcome of your pizza. I can tell you once you get to CRM Science, they'll scope it for you. And you guys were just about spot on. The Salesforce process, it changes. There's a lot of complexity around that, and time of year and sales cycle and all that stuff factors into it. But think of the whole journey when you order that pizza. When you're building your app, make sure you think about that afternoon traffic.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Well, we're at the end here. I do want to thank Erin, Seth, Matt, Diana, all the help behind the scenes. I can't thank you enough. You know, I genuinely appreciate you guys as customers. And I would ask the folks in the audience, you know, this was our first shot at, I think what we'll call the AppExchange Chronicles. And do us a favor, right? If you liked it, take a few minutes to forward it to a friend and say, hey, you should have been there. And just ask for their investment of a few minutes to read this or to watch this. And that would really help us and create a movement here. But thank you so much, everybody, for attending today. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I will echo that. Thank you to the panelists. Amazing insights. Thanks so much. And as Joe mentioned, you know, forward this recording to your friend who could not be here today. We recorded the whole thing. You're going to receive it in your inbox later today, so stay tuned. And with that, I think we are ready to wrap up, right?
Thanks, everybody. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks so much. We'll see you next time. Take care.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.